Not even the oldest great-grandfather or the oldest great-grandmother could remember the 24th of December 1816. Well, that was a very, very long time ago. There was no car, no fridge in the world then, not a single television, and not even half of a telephone. Such inventions simply did not exist then. And yet people lived, talked to and visited one another. They were just getting ready for one of the most beautiful evenings of the year. Children were awaiting the first star, enjoying the white snow that coated their winter backyards, and eagerly helping their parents in preparing supper. You can probably guess which day and magical night it was, can't you? Yes, it was Christmas Eve. Only it was over 200 years ago. Let me tell you a story from that day. Some people say it's just a legend, a kind of half-truth, or even a completely untrue story repeated from generation to generation. But, after all, in every legend there is at least one tiny seed of truth. Listen. In the village of Misiarczyk in Austria, which is quite far away, a whole day's drive from Poland, Vicar Joseph Moore was preparing a sermon for the shepherdess. A shepherdess is the name for a special kind of service held at midnight at the start of Christmas Day, and the sermon is a message that the vicar prepared to share with those who would come to the shepherdess. He had been writing about the miracle of that evening, the Star of Bethlehem, the stable, the donkey, and the two people who were expecting a baby. Baby Jesus was about to be born into the world. Who could that be? The door of the house shook under the heavy knocks, and the echo spread throughout the vicarage. Someone was standing at the entrance and was not going to give up at all. Could it really be a stray wanderer? The vicar threw on a woolen jumper and rushed down the dark corridor to the enormous brass door. The wind whistled through the door frame, and a blast of fresh snow drifted in as he opened the door. "Christopher, what happened?" "Come in and tell me everything," said the vicar. He was a poor charcoal burner, a good friend of the vicar. Wrapped in a thick overcoat but still frozen to the bone, the man had on a huge hat, snow on his moustache, and cheeks red from the biting cold. He seemed very worried. "My wife has just given birth. She's feeling very badly. A neighbour has already run for a medic, but I beg you, come with me to our house and pray for them." The vicar did not hesitate for a moment. They immediately set off for the charcoal burner's home. Meanwhile, in the windows of the Misiarczyk cottages, one could see families and friends enjoying supper together, neighbours sharing well wishes and breaking bread. After all, it was Christmas Eve. It was getting darker now. The sun was pelting the hikers' eyes, and it was difficult to get through the high snowdrifts. After quite a while of strenuous walking, they arrived at the man's house where his wife and tiny baby were. The house was sparkling from the light of the candles, or perhaps it was from some indescribable glow that permeated the room. Warmth and unearthly brightness shone from the fire in the fireplace, but also from the immensity of maternal love. It was evident that the charcoal burner's wife was not feeling well, but in her eyes she had peace, hope, and the will to fight for her health and life. She sat in an armchair and cuddled her newborn to herself, exhausted but smiling with tenderness. She looked at the baby as if it were her most precious treasure. "It's a boy," the woman said. "It's a boy, just like in Bethlehem." The vicar had never visited a family when a child had just been born, and now it happened on a night like this. It was a sight like from a dream, a true night of miracles. He said a prayer, and in his spirit he knew that everything was going to be all right. The doctor arrived, so he threw on his sheepskin coat and set off home. As he left, he stopped in the midst of the village and looked up high. The last snowflakes glittered in the moonlight, and the vicar searched the sky for the brightest star. He remembered his mother, who'd given him life in spite of the enormity of her hardships. With a sigh, he wondered at the heart of every mother that would sacrifice everything for her child. He looked around. Let's hope folk get up for the shepherdess. Upon arriving home, the vicar made himself a nice cup of tea. He was so impressed by the events of the evening that he forgot about his sermon and decided to write a poem instead. The words spilled out onto the yellowed page. Stille Nacht, heilige Nacht. These were the first words. You may not understand them because they are in German, the language of Vicar Joseph. In English it means silent night, holy night. Do you know what comes next? Yes, peace is brought to the people everywhere. The next lines, and the next, and the next flowed smoothly and as if magically. This is how the 6 stanzas of the poem came into being. This poem remained hidden for 2 long years, and during this time the charcoal burner's family often visited the vicar with their toddler, thanking him for his prayer. They believed that that prayer was answered that winter night and made them well. The vicar did not want the poem to be forgotten or lost. It was, after all, a testimony to the miracle of birth. He had to do something with it. It was then that he met a very, very important character in the story. Franz Xavier Gruber was a musician. He played the organ. Over time they became friends. One day Joseph said, "Franz, I need your help. See, this is the poem I wrote 2 years ago. Do you think it can be made into a nice song? Maybe you'd like to give it a try. You have the talent after all." "You don't say no to friends. I'll do it with pleasure," replied Franz, and he immediately began to create a melody. The friends probably had no idea that they were just writing one of the most beautiful and most famous carol songs in the world. On the 24th of December, 1818, in Oberndorf, Austria, the 2 of them sang it at a shepherdess service. They got applause, lots of applause. An organ should have sounded as an accompaniment, but it said that mice gnawed it, or there was no organ at all in that church. Thankfully, there was a guitar. I'm sure you know this instrument. The carol was first sung only locally, but over time it spread around the world and was translated into more than 300 languages. In around 1930, it arrived in Poland. It was probably translated from German by the composer Peter Misiarczyk. Since then, the carol has touched us too. It gives hope for a better tomorrow, warms the soul, brings peace to all people. Will you sing it this Christmas?